What's going on, producer friends? Back with another video. This time I'm going over my remix for Mazzo and Olin. I can't even believe that I'm saying that. Yes, I do have a official remix for Mazzo and Olin Problems out on Whenuknow right now. So I wanted to kind of go over the project file to give a little bit of insight into how I made certain things if anyone had questions on that. And plus, it's just fun talking about, how I made a track that people seem to like. I really like it a lot. I had a lot of fun making it, so I thought it would be a lot of fun to relive that with you guys and go through the project file. If you want to check out the full version, you can go to Whenuknow's YouTube channel. I'll go ahead and link the video in the description if you want to check out the tune. But anyways, let's go ahead and hop into the project file. So this is the project file for my Problems remix by Mazzo and Olin. Okay, so here we are in the project file, and if you haven't heard the tune just yet, I will go ahead and skip through it a bit just so you can get an idea.
So I promise that it's not worth losing the rest of your mind.
Right, so a little intro, a little house thing going on, then a breakbeat thing, then more of an acid thing on the tail end. So I will go ahead and start breaking it down. You can see I have it laid out, effects group on top, then vocals, then all my instruments and stuff, my basses, harmonic elements, and then my drums. So I will just go ahead and go straight down, starting with the effects. So the effects are actually super simple. I'm mostly using the effects from the stems, like these right here. That kind of stuff. Mostly as filler elements. I'm using it here a little bit too. Other than that, I'm just using these really simple presets that I've made for myself. This one's called LFO machine. It basically just is really like a riser machine. And so that's literally just an LFO affecting the frequency of the saw wave and doing a couple other little things here, automation and stuff like that. So that's kind of the sound that you hear right before the breakbeat part. As far as effects go, the only other cool kind of thing is I always use these cashmere impacts because they're just like so nice, and why it's such a simple sound. Why would I use anything else? Right? A few little operator effects, yeah, just some white noise and stuff like that. All pretty basic though. But let's get to the real meat of it. Let's go to the vocals. So it looks like I did a lot of stuff with the vocals, but you can see here that I have like basically nothing going on in the vocals, just the EQ to my to balance things in the mix a little bit, and then I'm automating it so it's a little bit wider in some areas and stuff. But the main reason I didn't want to mess with any of the vocals was because that's the most relatable and quickly understandable part of the song, and that's also the most recognizable part, I would say, of the original. Right, is always the vocals. Like, just as a human, your ear is immediately going to attach to another human voice. That's going to be the thing you want to listen to. So I wanted to write around the vocals rather than process them super heavily and kind of fit them into the track. You can see here just the plain vocals.
I know it feels like you're taking steps backwards, but I promise it's not gonna be for the rest of your life.
And moving along, I have the chorus vocals right here. And you can see I just have a little bit of, the only reason this is on a new track is because I have a little bit of automation that I mess with throughout it. Just like reverb and filtering and that kind of stuff. And I have another separate track for the bridge vocal. It looks like I'm just automating a little bit of echo. So a lot of the times what I do is like if I want to automate something and I'm not processing it super heavily, it's pretty lightweight to just make a new track and automate it that way. So I'm not having to deal with 700 automations all on one track. Just a little way to keep things organized. And down here I have a little reverse reverb with the vocal. Just to help introduce the vocals in this section right here where the vocals come back, so you can kind of hear.
I know it feels like you're taking steps backwards.
For some reason there's a little operator thing in here. Just a little bass noise. I don't think that was supposed to be in the vocal group, but stuff happens. And here we actually have a recording from my MS-20 up here, which I think you should be able to see that in the frame, but I'll play that real quick. And that one is pretty dry, but these are the ones that I was referring to that I wanted to keep in the background. So I'm literally just holding that note and just opening the filter and then closing it. And I just love with the high resonance how you can hear it moving through all the different harmonics, and it just sounds so like buttery and smooth to me. So it's just like the perfect little background element. All right, so the next thing I want to move to is this bass noise. So the main meat of this patch actually is from a song I released called Hard Drive. I saved that patch and I've actually reused it on a couple of different songs. So the only kind of cool thing that's going on in here is that I'm kind of automating this filter as in a way where it's kind of like a step sequencer. So it's just like on off. You can see I'm making these kind of square wave shapes with it. But then I'm also kind of having these more saw wave organic kind of shapes. It was just a lot of experimentation until I found it something that I liked. But you can hear if I take the filter off, that it's actually shorter. So some of these notes are actually shorter. So it's right? And so for that, I am automating the LFO or the envelope rate. In this case, I'm using the LFO as the envelope. To actually make it so if the rate is higher, they're shorter. So if you watch this here, you can see that these lower notes are going to be the ones that are longer and are a little bit more accented. Because if there was like somebody, playing a bass, that would be kind of like they were palm muting. If you know anything about guitar, it's where your picking hand, actually you place the meat of your hand right on the strings to get it that chunky feel. A lot of metal guitarists use this, so it's chun 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 chun, chun 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 chun. So I wanted to do something kind of similar in this case. So you can see using the filter and making those notes shorter, it kind of gives the bass life and it feels like it's moving. It's like a little bit more organic. And let's move on to these chords that come in above the bass line. I'll go ahead and play them together. Just a quick note on the actual notes that I chose here. So I'm creating these chords. They're kind of chords, but they're not necessarily major or minor. They're kind of these open chords where I have a G, and then on top I have a D. So you can see there it's just a perfect fifth kind of thing, no minors or major thirds going on or anything like that. But when we go to the chord change, I do actually hit this D sharp right here, which would be in a minor scale, because I really wanted it to follow the lyrics, right? Because if your ears are really following the lyrics the whole time, when she says, I know it feels like you're taking steps backwards, I wanted it to feel like tension, like, like as if you're taking steps backward and you're feeling anxiety about it. I wanted the chords to follow that. So that's kind of why I chose those. But you can hear here, they're pretty reverbed out, got a convolution reverb on them. A little bit of EQing, chorus, that kind of stuff. And I believe actually I am automating in a similar way this filter to give it like a little side chain kind of pumping feel. So let's listen to that real quick. And you can see I'm heavily bit crushing it and then blending it back into a dry signal. So we're getting some nice high end, and same thing with the erosion. So it's actually a pretty basic sound, but it just layers really well with the bass that's a little bit more in the middle. It kind of fills up the sides and fills up a little bit of the room sound as well. What else do we have in this group? Let's see. I have this little background loop in here that's very quiet. Super, super tiny in the background, but that's just giving the illusion of depth. You see what I did there? But actually, it is kind of creating this like maybe crowd-like noise as if we're all standing in some huge warehouse or something like that, and does definitely give the mix a little bit of depth. Like because of that, the kick is going to feel even closer to you because you have that contrast, right? So that is playing throughout the song and is actually in the outro. I have it just completely dry. So that's a little tidbit. And other than that, I have this little siren noise that's completely dry. And for some reason, I have some breakbeat stuff going on in this group. Again, not supposed to be there, but, you know, things happen. So these are just some pretty heavily filtered Vengeance breaks because I just wanted them to be kind of in the background and nothing too fancy, just something to kind of serve that purpose. So that's why I go to Vengeance, because it's just perfect for stuff like that. I think that's it. Oh, actually, let's see here. That's right. So I do have a lead that comes in a little bit later on that I just recorded with the MS-20. I just made the patch on the fly and played it in, so I don't remember exactly what was going on, but I remember there's a pretty quick LFO that was routed to the low pass filter on it, so that's where you can hear that kind of warbly sound on it. And then it repeats. So yeah, that's honestly, that's really why I love using analog synths, because you can just walk up to it, dial something in, it works right there, boom, you got it, and you're done. It's not like I'm gonna be sitting there diving through menus and changing the amount of this LFO by percentages, right? Because it's all just by feel. So whenever I just need something quick, I always pretty much just walk over to my little synth bookcase and see what I can get. So in this case, that's what I got. There's also these really, really filtered out chords that come in just to fill up a little bit of space and to give a little bit of movement. Just these little things that kind of fill in space and that make the track evolve over time that you don't really hear necessarily, kind of just more feel it. And the last synth element that I will go over is this little acidy synth towards the end that comes in. And so I already had this Acid 303 kind of preset made in here that I used. The only cool thing about it, I guess, is that I'm using trash on the iris aliasing, mode to give it a super, super bit reduced kind of kind of sound. And you can hear that here. But that's just a pretty simple acid patch that I made an operator, and it kind of just goes along with the bass and the chord sounds. Right, so I just wanted to have another kind of like element that comes in the outro just to keep things fresh. So let's move on to the drums. Okay, so for the drums, I feel like it's appropriate to start with the kick. So this kick it looks complicated, but it's not that bad actually. It's just a couple of different layers. So the first thing we have is a kick drum that I made an operator actually. And you can see I have it filtered down pretty hard, so no high end really. Next, I just have this natural kick drum sample. with a little bit of room on it, and I'm compressing it and stuff like that. And this is going to make it sound a little bit more real, right? Because when you have a kick drum that's, you know, an actual kick drum on a drum kit, you're not just hearing the thump of the kick. You're hearing the thump of the kick, the beater hit the actual skin, and then the actual drum set itself shaking. Because I mean that's a big drum, you know, so you're gonna get a little noise or a little bit of room noise. So that's kind of what this piece is for. And I believe this is gonna be more of the high end click. So that's like the beater, and this is like the thump. And this is kind of like the room kind of sound, or like the extra little noise that you get. And all that makes it sound really natural. And the reason that I went for really more natural kind of drums than this, usually I'm playing around with 909 samples and synthesized kicks and stuff. But for this, I wanted to go something a little bit more natural because I wanted the breakbeat transition to seem more natural, right? So if I'm using like 909s and stuff, and then I try to go something that's breakbeat, it's just gonna feel like too much of a contrast or not consistent enough. So I wanted to have a consistent kick the whole time, but I just wanted it to feel very natural. So that's why I'm using a lot of natural samples. The next thing I have is the claps, which again look a little bit complicated, but they're not too bad actually. So a couple of these layers are actually muted and they're not making any sound like these ones. So this is actually just claps on this. You can see the project file isn't completely super organized, but I pretty much just laid the claps once and kept moving in the arrangement. So you can hear here. So these are all claps that I actually recorded when my one roommate moved out in my old place. I just stuck a mic in the middle of his room and just clapped a whole bunch of times, trying to get impulse responses and that kind of nerdy stuff. So I actually have all these claps left over, and so I try to use them because, like I said, I wanted something very natural sounding, right? So I got a lot of these natural clap sounds. So together, sounds like somebody's or a couple people are in the room clapping, and you can see here that I offset them slightly each time, right? So they're kind of going back and forth, and that's just to make it feel like there's a flam. So it's like, because that makes it feel a little bit more human, is having these tiny little imperfections. And I believe that this is just the snare. So it's basically just a triangle with a little bit of FM, a saw that's an octave up, and a little bit of white noise, some really tight filters. Matt Zoe actually has already a lot of really good videos talking about these kind of techniques. I kind of just moved them over to Serum because he uses Vital, it seems like, a lot for that stuff. But on this particular day, I was using Serum, so pretty much just use those techniques in Serum. So I have this, which is a little bit more of the meaty kind of layer, and then I believe I have a lot more of a kind of layer, a little bit more white noise kind of layer that has some chorus on it to make it a little bit wider. And then I have a bit of convolution reverb. Like I said, want it to be natural. And then a compressor after the reverb, which is a little weird for me, but hey, I'm just showing you guys exactly how the project is, for better or for worse. So the snare, those two layers together sound like this. And it sounds a little bit thin on its own, but actually in the context of everything, it's a little bit thicker. It takes up a little bit more room than it seems like, especially because these claps have a lot of low mid energy. So them combined, it seems a little bit more thicker. And moving on to the hi-hats, this hi-hat loop actually was recorded by my good friend Andrew. Shout out to Andrew, who has a drum set and it's mic'd up at home. And I just had him play a bunch of breakbeats one day at like 128 and some at 170 and stuff like that. And just other random little one shots. And so this is actually just, if we listen to the whole sample, right? So it's just the hi-hat, just a busy hi-hat, right? So this is perfect because I really wanted to, again, have the kit sound really natural. So I'm just side chaining it to the kick a bit and pulling out, it looks like just one harsh frequency and cleaning some things up. Right, so I love having this, like, instead of just pulling from Splice or whatever, I'd much rather have, like, my friend send me a thing, and then now I have my friend like immortalized in this song forever on Anjuna Beats, right? Like that to me is so much cooler than just going to Splice. I'm not trying to, to get down on Splice or anything like that. I think it's really, really good for certain things, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just too much of a nerd. Maybe that's what it is. Now, with that being said, actually, the shaker that comes in later, which I will play real quick, is actually from a completely free sample pack. So this is something that everybody could have layered with something that, only I have. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say basically is it doesn't really matter. It's just more fun for me to think like, oh wow, my friend is like playing alongside me in this song or something like that. But moving on to the drums in the breakbeat section, so I will play the whole entire group here, and you can kind of see what the breakbeat drums sound like. So this instrument rack is just the ghost notes on the snare. And the whole reason I have another instrument rack for this is because when you have ghost notes on a snare, they don't have as much body and they don't have as much attack. So I changed up the patch a little bit to have a little bit less attack. Like again, I just want things to sound really natural in this case. The only other layer I have in here is, besides the toms, which are included in the clap for some reason. Again, not exactly sure why, but it's just two simple tom sounds. I don't even think I did too much processing to them. I do have this little Vengeance breakbeat break in here though. Just filling up a little bit of space and making that breakbeat section stand out and just sound slightly different than the more disco-y or house kind of section before that. So yeah, the drums are actually pretty simple. I had to keep them kind of simple just to make sure that I had enough brain power to also, arrange things in an interesting way, and also, be able to keep the listener's attention. But that is pretty much the entire project file right there. Yeah, I had so much fun writing this. It was really, really great to have really awesome stems to work with. So thank you to Matt Zoe and thank you to Olin for such a great vocal performance, obviously. If you like this video, I do a ton of stuff like this. I do a lot of breakdowns for these songs that I release. So definitely hit like, subscribe, and whatever other little buttons that you would fancy. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.